Howdy! The purpose of this video is for you and I to have a quick chat about the main features of electric guitar necks. The reason I care that you know these things is because when you enter a guitar store and someone's trying to sell you a guitar, or you're just trying to buy an electric guitar, a lot of these jargon that we're going to talk about in this video are actually used in describing those electric guitars and their necks. Things such as the guitar neck profile, the joint angle, so on and so forth. And if you know what these things mean, you know what is it that you're holding. So if you like electric guitars as much as I do, you want to know what they're about. But when the salesperson comes and says, oh, this is this and that, and this neck angle, this, and this neck joint, that, you know exactly what they're talking about. And that's a good thing. This is how this video is structured. First, we're going to talk about the guitar neck build. How's it built? Secondly, we're going to talk about different guitar neck joints. How is the neck connected to the body? Then we're going to talk about the guitar neck angle. How is it angled against the body of the guitar? Then we're going to talk about the neck profile. How is it shaped? Then we're going to talk about the fretboard radius. And lastly, we're going to talk about the headstock. We're going to go through a quick rundown of those features. We're going to talk about exactly as much as we as guitar players and guitar enthusiasts need to figure out what we want and what we need and so on. Now, one quick point before we start this video, and I'm going to repeat it at the end again. Remember, always buy your guitar based on the sound and the feel of what you're holding, not the slogans and theory. All right, so let's get started. Guitar neck build. Guitar necks are built in two major ways. Number one is just a single piece of wood, also known as the one-piece neck. The second method, also known as the laminated neck, is when you get a bunch of pieces of wood and you glue them together to make your neck. And while you're doing that, you can add some reinforcing material, such as carbon or epoxy resin, to get that final build. Laminated necks have a stronger strength to weight ratio comparing with single piece of wood. That is why they're more often used in 7, 8, or 9 string electric guitars or more, and basses, because there is where you need a lot more strength because of the string tension, and also the guitars are heavier. So, neck build, either single piece or laminated. Let's talk about neck joints. Guitar necks are connected to the guitar bodies in 3 major ways. You got the set neck or the glued neck, you have the bolt-on or the screwed neck, and you have the neck through or the 3-piece. And the neck through is basically where the neck and a part of the guitar body, the middle of it, is made out of one piece of wood, but then 2 wings are added on either side of that, and they make the body of the electric guitar. Bolt-on necks are the cheapest and the easiest to make, to fix, and to maintain. The neck throughs are the hardest ones and the most expensive ones to make, maintain, and fix. If all other factors in 3 different electric guitars are exactly the same, which they never are, but let's just assume they are for a second. So 3 guitars exactly the same, the only differentiating factor is the neck. One is set, one is bolt-on, and one is neck through. The one that has a bolt-on neck will have a slightly brighter sound and a snappier, twangier sound, like a Strat, because wink wink, Strats are bolt-on mostly, aren't they? The neck through one will likely to have a warmer sound and a higher sustain comparing to the other ones. I said if all factors are the same, and they actually never are in the real world, meaning that you may very well go to a guitar store and pick up a bolt-on neck electric guitar, and it sounds warmer and it has more sustain than any other guitar that you touch in that store. With that said, one advantage of a neck through neck is that it allows for the guitar builders to have a more rounded guitar heel. And if you don't know what a guitar heel is, there you have it. All right, next, let's talk about the neck angle. Guys, in the building of electric guitars, there are 2 major paradigms, 2 major schools of thought, 2 major philosophies, if you may. The first one is called the Fender paradigm, and the second one is called the Gibson paradigm. Surprise! The Fender paradigm has the guitar neck parallel to to the guitar body. They're on the same line. And there's a variety of reasons why this happened to be, one of them being simplicity. And the second paradigm is the Gibson paradigm, where the guitar neck is actually slightly angled against the body of the electric guitar. The reason for that was to make it more comfortable to hold. Now, this angle is usually between 3 to 5 degrees, optimally 4 for Gibson Les Pauls. So this is what we mean when we say guitar neck angle. Now, one thing you have to remember about the Gibson necks, or any other guitar that is made with a Gibson paradigm, with a Gibson philosophy, is that given the angle of the guitar neck, those guitars actually need a slightly higher bridge so that the strings don't touch the neck all the time and create buzz. Next, let's talk about the guitar neck profile. The guitar neck profile basically refers to the shape of the neck of your electric guitar, right? There are 3 major shapes: the C shape, the V shape, and the U shape. However, there are a whole bunch of other derivatives, there are a whole bunch of other variations, and there are also compound ones as well, where on part of a neck is like a certain shape, and as you go down, the shape changes or rotates or so on and so forth. But as a rule of thumb, and rule of thumb has a lot of exceptions, right? We know what rule of thumb means, but as a rule of thumb, the C shapes are the most common. The V shapes are probably the most old school ones, and the U shapes are more suitable for bigger hands. All right, next, let's talk about the fretboard radius. And if you're thinking,
Oh, the fretboard is not part of the guitar neck. I thought this video was about guitar necks.
you may be right, you may be wrong. We're gonna talk about it. Now, fretboard radius refers to how curved the fretboard of your electric guitar is. The smaller the inches, the less the inches, the more curved it is. Now, traditionally speaking, electric guitars actually were first built with flat fretboards. But as we evolved, as our skills became better, as our guitars became better, we started to add a bit of curve to the fretboard. The reason we do this is because our hands are naturally curved. So if you put your hand on the table right now, your hand is not going to be just like flat, it's going to be curved, just like mine. And that was the rationale to add a bit of curvature to the fretboard. Now, the 10-inch, 12-inch, more curved fretboard are very well suited for playing chords, especially the higher part of your guitar neck when you're playing lower notes. However, if you want to bend and release, if you want to noodle on your electric guitar, you may want to consider going for a slightly flatter or an absolutely flat fretboard, just like that last 2 guitars over there that are as flat as a table when it comes to their fretboard. There are guitars that actually break these boundaries, just like that guitar that you're seeing back there. So this guitar has a 12-inch fretboard at the very top, but as we go closer to the body, that gets increased to 16 inches. And again, the rationale is that you hold the chords up there mostly and you noodle down there mostly. You're less likely to hold like crazy chords closer to the body. Now, you might be wondering, why is it that less inches means more curved and more inches means less curved? Let me explain. I'm gonna get a piece of paper like this, and I'm gonna make a cone out of it, like this. So now you can see where I'm holding my fingers here, the circle here is actually smaller than the circle there, right? Here, this circle has a lesser radius. Hence, this area is more round. This circle has a higher radius. Therefore, this surface is less round. So this is the logic of it. And lastly, let's talk about the headstock joint. There are 3 ways that your headstock is connected to your neck. Let's talk about each of the categories. First one is the straight one piece. And these necks, by the way, are part of the Fender paradigm. Think of a Telecaster, right? These necks are pretty strong. However, they got one downside, and that is because of the fact that your headstock is parallel to the neck and everything is level, and the neck against the body is not angled either. These strings come all the way flat into the nut. they don't put that much pressure to the bottom of the guitar nut. And as a result of it, they're more likely to pop out. Now, to remedy this, things such as string trees are put on the headstock so that they keep the strings down and they add a little pressure to the nut. But that's a little bit of a con on these types of necks, which takes us to the second category of the headstocks that we talked about, the angled one-piece headstock. So basically, to remedy the one downside of the straight one-piece headstock, the luthiers came in and they angled that one-piece wood. So they just carved it differently. That was a great idea. The strings bent on the outside of the nut and they put pressure on the base of the nut now. That's good. However, these headstock joints tend to be a little weaker. And here's the reason why. So let's talk about it. Imagine this is a block of wood that I'm going to be using to cut and get my, one-piece angle neck headstock out of it, right? Now, this piece of wood, this block of wood, will likely to have some grains, as all woods do. So imagine the direction of the grain is like this, right? So it's going to have a whole bunch of grains like this, and they all left to right in their direction. So this is the grain, and what I am going to do is to go on and cut this piece of wood like this. I'm gonna do a cut here, I'm gonna do a cut there, so that's my guitar neck, and then it's a one piece, so we're also gonna cut out the headstock like that. Okay, can you see the shape? Can you see the blue lines? So this is the guitar neck bit, this is the headstock bit. And then what happens to the strings is that the strings go from here to there, and then from here to go down all the way to the bottom, right? So the direction of the tension of the strings is in purple. See that? That's the direction of the energy of your strings as they move from the neck towards the headstock, because they have to angle to the tuning pegs when your headstock is angled. Now, do you see the direction of the wood grains? It's left to right. Do you see the direction of the string? The energy of the string is like top left to bottom right. It's because of this discrepancy is that the angled one-piece headstocks, despite the fact that they're not that complicated to make, they are slightly weaker than the first category that we just talked about. And to resolve this issue, we now have to evolve and go to the third category of guitar necks. It's a beautiful evolution. And this takes us to the scarf joint. So this is how the scarf joint is made. So imagine this bit is the head bit, this bit is the body bit, and your wood grain's direction is from right to left this time. Right to left, right? So you cut the head piece off in like a diagonal manner, and then you get the cut off head piece and you rotate it upside down. Then you put the long part of where you cut, so this part, you put it back to where the neck part is. So you cut it, you flip it, you put it back. Now you're in a scenario where your wood grain, this part is right to left, and in this part is also the old right to left, but this time is diagonal now, right? Because you flipped it and you put the long side attached to the neck part. You notice here now is where the wood grain is still maintaining its original direction, and it's now in line with the direction of the tension of your guitar string. This is how we figured to do an angled guitar neck without creating any discrepancies between the direction of the wood grain and the direction of your guitar string. Now, you notice that there are two methods mentioned here, method 1, method 2. In method 1, we got the cut piece of the headstock, rotated it, and put it on top of the neck part. This is called a Spanish scarf joint and is a little bit more stronger than method number 2, where you get the cut, so you cut a little less, so you get the cut, you rotate the piece, but this time instead of putting it on the top, you actually put it at the bottom of the neck, right? This one is called the steel string scarf joint method, And it's, again, a valid way to do it, but it's not as strong. And the reason for that is that the smaller part in the Spanish scarf joint, the method number 1, the smaller part sits on top of the neck, so the neck actually holds it a little. The fact of the matter is that the wood glues that they use for making the guitars are actually very, very strong. So it's not like that if you do your scarf joint the steel string method, the headstock is going to fall. No, it's going to be relatively strong too, but you get the point. Architecturally, theoretically speaking, that's how it works. And bang, that's about it. Now we know what each of these jargons mean and where they came from and what their impacts are. Always remember though, like I said at the beginning of this video, the first thing I told you was that you want to buy your guitar based on how it sounds like, based on what it feels like, not what the theory or what the slogans are. Ultimately, a good electric guitar neck is the one that you don't notice it's there. It's the one that is invisible, that when you're playing it, it's so one with your body that you don't notice it's there at all. That's a good guitar neck. Obviously, there shouldn't be any scratches, any bumps, any uneven areas, any sharp areas. On your electric guitar neck, your hand should smoothly slide up and down, right? With that being said, when you're choosing your electric guitar and you're thinking about what type of neck works for you, the best way to go about it is not to think, all right, I want a C-shaped neck profile with a Fender Paradigm neck angle that is even and a headstock of this and that. No, no, no. You pick up the guitar, you try as many guitars as you can, and then you figure out what works best for you. Then you learn what are the characteristics of the guitar neck that works the best for you. So now you have a set of parameter. Now you have a track record of what has worked for you, so that when you're buying the next guitar and the next guitar and the next guitar, you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. And hey, by the way, now you're a lot more educated when it comes to the guitar neck. You can tell your friends about it. When you read something online, you're trying to help somebody out, you're trying to comment something, you can now use the stuff that we just learned together, and that's a good thing. You're a guitar enthusiast, and you now know a lot more about guitar necks. That's good. And I'm not going to take any more of your time. Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope you're well. Take a really good care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.